First, we are going to get into the MLB, as you said, full swing. And now in May, I think now everyone's starting to get a swing of things, especially, we're going to start with the Mets. And the Mets started this season off, very oddly with the COVID and then a ton of rainouts. And now it seems like they finally, hit their stride. And I feel like once they've hit their stride, the injury bug has started. And none bigger than Jacob deGrom, who was placed on the IL with right side tightness here. And the expectation is that it's going to be a shorter stint on the DL. And the Mets do have 8 games in 11 days. So there is some time off. But obviously, that's a big blow for, in my opinion, the best pitcher in baseball. And obviously, the Mets are playing good. Winners of 7 straight, just swept, a 2-game series against the Orioles. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of handle the rotation without deGrom. But how good this Mets team's playing, I'm actually, as a Mets fan, not that worried. I think this injury comes at the right time because they're playing good baseball right now.
No, absolutely. I think it's perfectly fine for the Mets. Not that it's fine to lose the best pitcher in baseball, but I mean, I think the Mets can survive. You did mention the off days. They had the off day on Monday, and then they have an off day next Monday as well. So I think that they'll do okay. deGrom's going to miss 1, maybe 2 starts, and they're playing well. I mean, they're winners of 7 straight, as you mentioned, and their pitchers have been outstanding outside of deGrom. I mean, Stroman and Taiwan Walker have both been excellent. And I think, if this is as minor of a thing that deGrom says it is, the Mets will be all right.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you because here's the thing. I think with deGrom, like this right side tightness, and he says he's had it since like the start of the season, but it's kind of gotten worse in these last, few weeks. And I think that if you're the Mets, just kind of cut it off right here. Your team's playing well. As you mentioned, you have Stroman and Walker pitching, like one of the best pitchers in baseball. I mean, right now, both pitchers are just right at like that 2 ERA range. And I believe between deGrom, Stroman, and Walker, I think the Mets have 3 of the top 7 ERA pitchers in baseball, which just shows you, what the Mets are doing. And I think it comes at a good time in the schedule because in these 8 games, let's say deGrom only misses these 8 games, you could have Stroman pitch to, you could have Walker pitch to, you have Peterson, who hasn't pitched well as those guys, but he'll pitch the other 2. At least he's, a starting level pitcher. And then you really only got to worry about 2 games with either Joey Lucchesi or, a guy like Jordan Yamamoto, who, they're kind of just spot starters, but I mean, they won a few games with them earlier last week. I mean, to me, I just think it came at a good time, and it's a smart move because I feel like the Mets are known for letting injuries rag on and lag on. We saw it with Jed Lowry just, over these last few years. I feel just cut it right here and make sure that deGrom's healthy just, in the next 2 weeks. So, you're ready to go because after this little 8 game and 11 day stretch, they go on a stretch with 17 games in 17 days. So being fully healthy for that, I think is going to be of the utmost importance.
Right. And that's kind of the impression that I'm getting out of this. This seems to just be a precautionary thing. If his right side is bothering him, it's good to kind of just shut him down for 10 days, however long it is, and not let this turn into something a lot worse where he's missing more important games down the line. So I really think that the Mets will be okay. He's eligible to return May 20th. So I think with the off days that they have, as well as, how their starting rotation's been, which has been a big part of the reason they're 5 games above 500 right now, I think that the Mets are going to do okay. Their rotation should be fine. And, if deGrom's not missing that many starts, then good for the Mets. I think they're in good shape.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, that rotation, if they're pitching like this, hopefully they can keep it up. I mean, it's starting to worry me a bit because you're kind of getting thin. Carrasco, you put him on the 60-day IL. So he's now pushed back until I think like Memorial Day or around that range. Syndergaard's going to be around that too, maybe a little later, probably in June. Seth Lugo out of the bullpen's also hurt. And like now you have deGrom. So it's getting me a little worried, which I guess just shows you about Taijuan Walker, how good he's been because, if he wasn't pitching as good as he has, I think Stroman, everyone knew that he was going to be solid. Peterson, I think, is kind of pitched to the level kind of as that 5 starter. But Walker's that guy that to me is really overpitched. I mean, especially for what they signed him for, with, 2 years, 20 million. They were about to sign Bauer for, 3 years, 110 million. And right now, Walker's got a better ERA. I mean, to me, that's the key signing, right now. And if he can keep it up for a few more weeks, once the Mets, get the reinforcements back, whether it's deGrom, Carrasco, Syndergaard, I think that's going to be extremely important because, I I mean, we'll see if Walker can do this for, a whole season, but I mean, I think that would be tough, but at least if he can pitch at this, I mean, really all-star level right now, for a few more weeks, I think that's just going to be huge for the Mets. And then if deGrom stays healthy for the rest of the season, you're like, we did this at the right time and it ends up being a good move.
Yeah, and I think you say it perfectly. I mean, I think other than deGrom, Stroman and Walker have been probably the two most important pieces of the Mets' success so far this season. I mean, the bats, they haven't really woken up. They scored 7 runs today, but the bats really have not been there. I mean, Francisco Lindor was hitting below 200 up until today, and they're tied for dead last in runs scored still. So this rotation, I think, has really stepped up. I wasn't so sure about either of these two guys, Stroman or Walker, coming into this year, and they've both definitely exceeded my expectations. So I think as a Mets fan, with how slow the offense has been moving so far, you couldn't be happier with how the rotation is doing and how these guys are stepping up and how they're going to step up in the absence of deGrom. So I think that if the offense gets going, the Mets could be a dangerous team to watch.
And that's something I want to talk about real quick too. You bring up about the offense. Also, I know the runs are obviously aren't there. The home runs aren't either. I believe they're last in home runs too. And when you look at a lot of those home run hitters, it's not, it's Conforto, it's Alonso, it's Lindor, obviously. And, the list goes on of how many guys can hit 20 plus. Dom Smith. I mean, even James McCann was hitting 20 plus home runs, and he's just been, not the best, it doesn't look the best signing right about now. And if this team could start hitting with this pitching, and the bullpen, I think, was another worry, but the bullpen's been really solid too, which, I mean, for me, I did not expect, you have Familia pitching well. You have like Miguel Castro pitching well, which, like, to me, nobody expected. You have Aaron Loup, who they signed from the Rays, who's pitching well, Trevor May, and then Edwin Diaz, who now looks to me shut down. To me, it was the walk-in music from Timmy Trumpet, which I love so much. And like, to me, to me, if they can get this offense going, which I think they're starting to in the 7-game win streak, it's almost good luck to the rest of the league. And like, my thing was with the Mets, they can stay around 500 or a little above 500 until they get the Lugo back and then Carrasco and then all the reinforcements there. I think that they're going to be a really good second half team. And right now they're obviously 5 games over. So like right now, I think the Mets are definitely trending up, which, obviously is really good for the team. And if they can keep hitting, I mean, that's going to be, I think, huge for them, especially if Syndergaard comes back and Carrasco comes back. And I mean, we'll see. I mean, but if Syndergaard's like at top Syndergaard level, I mean, you talk about them competing, for a playoff spot, I think NL East would be very, likely. And at that point, I would be very interesting to see them in a playoff series, because I think they'd be a tough out. Because if you can throw deGrom and then you have a hard thrower with Syndergaard, then you have someone like Carrasco and Stroman and Walker, all that depth will be tough to beat. And if the hitting, if it's just good enough, that's all it's got to be good enough. I think this team is built for the playoffs, which to me makes them a very scary opponent when you're looking around the league. Even if it's the Dodgers or Padres, I think that, this team is built to win a 5-game series or a 7-game series, which to me would, in October, is going to be really important.
Well, to me, it just kind of depends on how Syndergaard and Carrasco come back. Are they, they're coming off of arm injuries. Are they going to be the pitchers that, the Mets want them to be? Particularly Syndergaard, because he's just been hurt so often at this point. So I really think that's a big thing. But as we mentioned, if the bats wake up, if Francisco Lindor, we know he's not going to hit 200 the whole season. Like, let's be honest here. So I think that, these pitchers need to come back in good shape. They're in good shape right now, but if Syndergaard comes back as the dominant Noah Syndergaard we know, and if Carrasco's an above average starter, then this team could really do some special things. So I'm interested to see what they do in the summer and beyond. Let's see how this season rides out.
Yeah, and for me, with one of those two guys, if they can get one of those two guys back to like their apex, I think you'd be happy, because then you still have Peterson, who I think would be a 5-starter for the rest of the season, probably a bullpen piece in the playoffs. But if they can get back to that level, and you have Stroman pitching well, you have Walker, maybe he's not a 2 ERA pitcher, but if he's, I think, in the 3s or something, I think that this rotation should be really good. Obviously with deGrom, playing at the top of his level as well. I think that's, going to be really important.